Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel once again. Today I'm actually going to be going over just my own take so far on my brand new Harley Davidson Iron 883. It's actually a 2019 model. I'm going to be going over why, again, I pivoted away from the last two previous bikes that I had, as well as what I think of the bike so far, and if I think, other people should buy it or deny it. I'm also going to be discussing why this bike has actually been like no other bike that I've ever ridden. So if you guys enjoy this content, as always, feel free to drop a like and a comment. Consider subscribing. If you are a current subscriber, I always recommend hitting the bell notification every time that I do post a video. I've been trying to post these more frequently now. I know I took a little bit of a vacation, but definitely going to be trying to produce as much as I can out there for you. Without further ado, let's get into this video. I had a V-Strom and I had a Yamaha Bolt. I stated that in a couple videos ago in one of my sit-down videos, and I explained how I didn't ultimately want to keep the V-Strom just because of how top-heavy I felt the bike was. Now, there are some people in the adventure class that believe that the Suzuki V-Strom 800DE is not top-heavy, but that is a very subjective view based on rider experience. If you're coming from more of a street-oriented bike, going to an off-road bike, I actually think the street people would agree that the bike is top-heavy, but if you're coming from DRZs or Tenerés or XR 650Ls, yeah, of course you're going to think that the bike isn't top-heavy and that it just feels normal to you. But for most of us riders out there that actually are in the street, I felt that the bike was top-heavy. I did not like commuting on it. I had that bike only a few months, and I think I had it just about 3 months, and I just said I can't do this anymore. I didn't like how in stop-and-go traffic, just kind of turning and weaving and bobbing around cars, you had to really put an extreme amount of effort into maneuvering it. So I would say its maneuverability was not to my choosing, and that's just my view. The bike itself was a phenomenal bike. If you're considering an adventure bike, do your homework and definitely get one if you truly desire that. But just know that if you're coming from the street and you're trying to do a little dirt, I don't think that the V-Strom is probably going to be the best bike for you. If you are coming from the street considering an adventure bike, I would actually go with the Transalp. I've test rode that in another video a while back, and it was a lot more nimble and a lot more maneuverable. So if you're the type that likes to split lanes, commute on your day-to-day, going to work, that bike is going to be more preferable to you than I think the V-Strom. But ultimately, it was the weight, the maneuverability, that was the reason why I got rid of it. I just wasn't finding myself doing as much off-road as I thought I would do, right? I thought that I would be hitting the canyons to get to the off-road scene every day. I did not. It's been hard for me to find people to go off-roading with, because I feel like off-roading is kind of more niche in motorcycles, and riding a motorcycle is a very niche thing as it is. So riding off-road is even more niche in my opinion. Now that's going to vary and depending on where you are in the world, what country you're in, what city you're in, etc. But for me in Southern California, I felt that bike just did not fit my needs for what I was doing. The other side of it is I wasn't being practical in what I was doing, which I'm mainly commuting, doing a little bit of weekend warrior stuff on the weekend, canyons, carving them, etc., going to biker bars, hanging out with people, whatever. I didn't want to do that on an adventure bike. It just, I don't know. I went back in, I think it was late June, early July with a friend, and we went to a local biker bar over here, and just maneuvering that thing into park, it just was kind of a nightmare. It wasn't terrible, but I just was like, yeah, I need something lighter weight, more nimble, can rip through traffic no problem, is not wide enough where I'm going to hit a car. That was another thing with splitting lanes. You could definitely do it if you have the experience, but if you're more beginner to intermediate like myself, it's not going to be a good bike to split lanes with. I can tell you that for certain. So this led me to getting a cruiser. And I had mentioned again in the last video, I went with the Yamaha Bolt. I liked the Yamaha Bolt. Honestly, I would have kept it if it wasn't for a couple of things that I just couldn't get over. Part of them was the rider ergonomics. The rider ergonomics on that bike it made me feel extremely cramped. And I will, in my experience, tell you the two things that stood out to me that made the bike more cramped, even after doing a slight modification to one of those things. The first is going to be the air intake. The air intake on the Yamaha Bolt sticks out like a f***ing sore thumb. Okay? It will hit your knee no matter what you do. You can't get comfortable on that thing because your knee is constantly hitting that damn air intake. Now, you can modify it and get a Vance & Hines. I don't know if you could get a Screamin' Eagle one, but you can get any type of aftermarket one that you can find. But ultimately, even with modifying it, your leg is most likely still going to hit. It just may not be as much. The second thing is going to be the way that the mid controls are placed. On the Harley itself, it does have mid controls, and the ergonomics actually feel very similar to the Bolt. The way in which the mid controls are actually the equivalent, in my view, of the forward controls you would get on the Yamaha Bolt to make it forward. With the forward controls on the Yamaha Bolt, you have to do a lot of heavy modifications. Now, a lot of you out there are going to be like, no, I can do it, I'm technically savvy, like, what are you talking about, it's easy, all you change is this and that. For the average person that doesn't want to spend hours at a time doing that, which it would take for someone inexperienced, it's a bit of a pain in the ass, right? And I'm sorry, I just don't want to spend my time doing that. I'd rather pay for someone to do that. And to be honest with you, a lot of the cruiser or motorcycle shops, they just won't do it if it's not a Harley, if it's not this brand or that brand. I mean, I even asked a Harley dealer, is there an off-branded motorcycle mechanic that you know, an independent mechanic that would do such a thing? And he's like, look, for most cruisers in the Harley class, they would, but unfortunately with more of the Japanese style bikes, that's going to be harder to do. Also too, there's just not a lot of aftermarket support for the Yamaha Bolt. And that's what I was also running into as well. And I'm sorry, like I want to be able to, change my bike up. If I want to change bars out, if I want to change controls out, if I want to flip the mirrors, which that doesn't necessarily, require a lot of aftermarket. You just change some bolts out. But if you want to change something out, you don't want to have limited amounts of stuff that you could change it to. I kept running into that. I kept running into this constant battle of no aftermarket support. These foot controls had me very hunched, and I was already leaned over, but it was the foot controls that really got me on that bike. After about an hour and a half to 2 hours, I was ready to get off that thing. And I've read other reviews, I've seen other reviews of people saying the same thing. So if you do have a Yamaha Bolt or you had one and you shared in the same problems, please comment down below, because I know I'm hoping I'm not the crazy one here, but I truly believe that bike ergonomically just did not feel right. Now, if it had the same kind of rider ergonomics as what I have now, the Iron 8A3, I probably wouldn't have given that bike away. Probably would have just added another bike to the stable and kept the Bolt, because the positives with the Bolt is, I will say, it was pretty torquey. It did have a significant amount of power when you go on the freeway or on the streets. However, I was not a fan of the jerky throttle, and that was another thing that I constantly was battling. I shit you not, there was one day where I was riding like in my neighborhood and I had to fix my glove, and I took my hand off and then put it back on as I fixed my glove, and I just accidentally, this was unintentional, accidentally just grabbed the throttle just a quarter of a way turn, and literally the bike just like was trying to zip away from me. And I don't want to say it was a full whiskey throttle, but I was like, dude, like, I don't like the way that this throttle response is. So I will say, you know, with the Yamaha Bolt, if you're considering buying a cruiser, definitely take into consideration that whiskey throttle. That throttle is extremely responsive. And at first, when I bought the bike, I had heard about that, but I didn't think like it was that big of a deal. And I actually considered liking it because I'm like, yeah, I want a bike to have all this power. Yeah, I want all this, you know, low down torque. You know, I want all this, right? And then as I rode it for some time, and then that incident happened, I'm like, holy shit, dude, like that is not what I want in a bike. I do not want to turn it accidentally. And I'm fine with a bike having throttle, but I prefer the more linear throttle handling, and I think the Bolt does semi have that, but I wouldn't say fully because of how responsive that damn throttle is. It's just very, very, very jerky. It's a very jerky throttle. Now some will say on the Iron 1200 it's the same thing. I'll say that it is kind of, but I will say it felt a lot better than that, and especially on the Iron 883 being a smaller displacement engine, I have found the throttle response is, in my view, I am not having any of those issues. It's 100%. I'm not going to say 100% actually. It's like 98, 99% better than what the Yamaha Bolt was, because I was just completely displeased at, you know, that throttle response. In the beginning, when you first crank it, I did not like the way that that thing felt. So this leads me into my next topic, which is my purchase of the Harley Davidson Iron 883, the 2019 model. Ultimately, I can hands down say now, because I've had this bike almost a month, I freaking love it. This bike is probably one of the most addicting bikes that I've ever ridden out of the 10 or so bikes that I've had in the last few years. This bike, you hop on it, very easy to maneuver, very maneuverable, definitely more nimble than the Bolt, even though it technically weighs a little bit more than the Bolt. This one definitely still seems smaller because the dimensions are smaller in length. I will say that the suspension definitely is trash stock. From my experience though, the suspension, a lot of people say the Bolt suspension is better because it's longer in the front. I will say that they almost, in my opinion, feel the same. However, I noticed that when I did crank the preload to 5 or 6 dots on the Iron 883, a lot of that stuff has gone away, at least 60 to 70% of it. You're still going to feel those bottom out situations if you go over a pothole or you go over something rough. Absolutely. On any cruiser, you're going to feel that, including the Bolt. Sure, you could get aftermarket shocks and you can spend all that money and do all that. I may do that in the future. I mean, this bike is definitely more of a long-term bike. It's been one of the best bikes I've ever had. Now, I know this sounds like I'm just being a hype man for Harley Davidson. I'm getting on the bandwagon. You're just to this, you're just to that. Yeah, I'm excited about this bike. I'm still in the honeymoon phase. Obviously, though, I've ridden this now for almost a month, so I can confidently tell you so far I've been pretty pleased. And I haven't had too many negatives to really report, other than kind of the riding position being a little bit cramped from time to time, using your core more, and then, you know, it just being kind of loud at times. But I just wanted to give you my view on why I pivoted away from the metric cruisers and just went with an all-American cruiser. This has been one of the best decisions, in my opinion, that I've ever made on a bike. The sound is like no other. The sound, the grunt, the torque off the line. I mean, I have never ridden a bike that has... I've ridden a bike, my V-Strom had more torque, but this just seems like you get on it and it just goes, bro. Like, you do not have to really try. I know a lot of people on YouTube are like, oh, it's too, you know, low in power, it's too this, it's too that, it's a smaller engine. I'll be the first to testify. I actually, in my opinion, feel that this has more power and more torque, at least the riding aspect of it, than the Yamaha Bolt. I felt like on the freeway, I actually had less freeway capabilities versus this. I took this on the freeway for about 30, 45 minutes, and I didn't have any problems. I will say on the freeway, you probably want to stick to 70, 75 as a cruising speed. Most of the time, traffic's going between 60 and 90 miles an hour in California, so this has plenty enough. Is it the most comfortable ride? No. You're not going to be super comfortable for like, you know, a 2-hour ride, 3-hour ride. Plus, you're going to be having to get off and get gas and everything else. Well, I feel that this bike is actually more capable on the freeway than the Yamaha Bolt is. And I know that there's a lot of Yamaha Bolt people out there that are going to hate on me, that are going to say, no, you're bullshitting. The way that it's set up, I firmly believe that this bike feels more torquier and just better in general. And it feels way more fun. Like, I can throw this thing around in the corners and the canyons, weaving through traffic, no problem. You know, lane filtering when I need. I mean, obviously you could see I don't lane filter often, but when I do, this has no problem. You know, this will get up and go. Trust me, I came from the metric bikes for the last few years, and I don't think I ever really want to go back. If I'm going to get a metric bike, it's going to be a second bike, because this bike, it's so addicting that it's so fun to ride that, like, every day I want to ride it. Which I don't ride it every day. I take breaks, especially if your body's sore. You know, you don't want to overdo it. But I can tell you that riding a Harley Davidson is like no other bike that you will ride. The amount of torque, the amount of power that some of these Harleys can have down low, the sound, the grunts, you know, just rev matching alone is extremely fun now because I can actually hear my engine. And just the look of it, the aesthetics of this bike is amazing. Like, I find myself often, I'll go for a couple-hour ride by myself, and then I'll stop to get some brunch or some lunch or dinner or whatever, and I have it parked near where I'm sitting, and I just can't stop looking at it because Harleys just have that appeal. They just look so great. If you guys want to know more, feel free to drop a comment. I definitely will be, you know, willing to answer. I want to hear your thoughts. Those of you that maybe had metric bikes that went the Harley route, how do you guys feel? Am I the only crazy one? Am I just too much of a fanboy? Because, like I said, this is just a bike that I've never ridden before, and now I don't want to stop riding it because it's that addicting. And I haven't, not to bash the Japanese bikes, I know that they're made really well, especially the sport bikes. They're fast, the performance is there. Definitely, I'm not hating on any of those, but there is something different, at least in my view and in my perspective of riding a Harley compared to other bikes, and it just gives you that feel. I'm not trying to go fast. I'm not trying to freaking drag race. Like, I'm not trying to blow fire out of my tailpipe, like, and tune it that way. Like, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to cruise and have fun, and then, yeah, rip it in some corners here and there, and this bike fulfills that. As time goes on, I definitely, some of the plans that I would want to do for this bike is eventually, you know, probably in 6 months to a year from now, I'm definitely looking at getting the 1200 conversion kit. Yes, I know a lot of you are going to say you just should have bought the 1200. To be honest, I don't like the way that the 1200s look, even though they look practically the same. I don't like the bar setup. You know, I like the low profile with the handlebars, and you know, to be honest, all you got to do is just upgrade the forward controls, which is another mod I want to do. Put the 1200 kit in it, and then you still have your bike for life. You know, I wouldn't want to go the 48 route as well because of the smaller peanut tank. I think that bike looks great, but it aesthetically looks pleasing. But that 2.1 gallon tank, you're filling up after 60 miles. I can get at least close to 100 miles before I have to fill up, and I could probably go another 20-30 miles even with the fuel light on. Handlebars I might change, forward controls, 1200 kit. Those are really the only other mods I would do to this bike. Other than that, everything is set up the way that I want it. I have the mirrors flipped down. We have a Vance & Hines short shot exhaust. Obviously, if I get the 1200 kit, I'll probably get a Stage 4. The OEM 1200 kit, which is the one I'll probably end up getting, has the Screaming Eagle air intake with obviously the new pistons and all the engine components to make it 1200. So I'll definitely probably be doing that. But anyway, those are just some thoughts, things I wanted to mention. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. Feel free to drop a like and a comment, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.